Every morning, George, a 75-year-old former history teacher, woke up with a slight stiffness in his joints and his usual thought: shower first, then coffee. He didn't complain about his age. On the contrary, he considered himself quite spry and active for his years. But recently, he'd begun to notice small, seemingly insignificant issues. The skin on his feet had become rough, occasionally cracked, and itchy between the toes. George blamed it on dry air or old socks. Or maybe just age? One day, when he noticed the skin around his heel had turned red and started peeling, he decided to mention it to his daughter, Carol. Without making a fuss, she suggested they visit a doctor together, just to rule out a fungal infection. In the office, the doctor calmly explained, "Mr. Evans, your feet aren't just what you walk on. The skin there is particularly vulnerable, especially if circulation is impaired or sensitivity is reduced. A simple shower, especially when you're just standing under running water, doesn't clean the skin properly, particularly between the toes." This revelation marked the beginning of a new habit for George. He realized he needed to rethink his approach to daily hygiene. Instead of just standing under the stream, he started deliberately caring for his feet. First, gently soaping them, paying special attention between the toes, then rinsing thoroughly and drying them with a soft towel reserved just for this purpose. He gave extra attention to the areas under the nails and on the heels, places where dead skin and moisture used to accumulate, creating a perfect environment for bacteria. After a couple of weeks, the discomfort disappeared. And a month later, when he was telling his friend Harold about the benefits of 10 seconds of foot care each, Harold just smirked. "What? You turned into a neat freak in your old age?" "No," George replied with a small smile. "I just don't want to treat something later that I could have prevented in a couple of minutes a day." Sometimes, health isn't about drastic changes. It's about small, mindful rituals. After 1/60, the body doesn't thank you for heroics. It thanks you for attention. Feet are the starting point of movement. And movement, in the end, is life. When Marianne, a 72-year-old widow, retired, she gladly put away all her nail polish, styling products, and hairdryer. Her short haircut required no effort, and her thinning hair, she thought, didn't need frequent washing. The scalp? Why wash it if there's barely any hair left? She reasoned. But recently, Marianne had begun to feel a slight itch on the back of her head, especially in the evenings. Sometimes small scabs appeared, and she'd find flakes of dandruff on her pillow in the morning. One evening, during a family dinner, she casually mentioned it to her son-in-law James, who happened to be a dermatologist. He gently explained that the scalp is just like any other part of the skin, and although the hair had thinned, the sebaceous glands still produced oil, which, without regular care, can form a dense, hard-to-remove layer. That buildup can cause irritation, inflammation, and even lower the skin's local immunity. Marianne was surprised, but decided to give it a try. The next day, she not only washed her head with a gentle shampoo, but also gave herself a light massage with her fingertips, just as James had recommended. She was amazed by how pleasant it felt. Afterward, it was as if her scalp had taken a deep breath. After a few such washes, the itching disappeared, and her mood improved. Even her sleep got better. She admitted to herself that this small act of care brought her a refreshing sense of comfort she hadn't realized she was missing. A week later, while tidying up the bathroom, she glanced at the mirror. Adjusting her glasses out of habit, Marianne suddenly paused. When was the last time she'd taken a proper look at her belly button? She wasn't sure if it was even clean. Carefully, using a cotton pad with soap and warm water, she cleaned this tiny but important area. What she saw on the pad shocked her a little. Built-up grime, despite thinking of herself as clean. From then on, this part of her body became part of her daily routine, too. A clean belly button isn't a whim. Soap residue, sweat, fabric fibers, all can accumulate there, creating a warm and moist environment perfect for bacteria and fungus. A simple clean, followed by gently drying it with a towel. It's not painful, not difficult, and nothing to be embarrassed about. Now, every morning, Marianne began her day not with coffee, but with a short, mindful act of self-care. Because even the parts of ourselves we don't see in the mirror still matter. Sylvia had lived her whole life with energy and dignity. Her posture, even at her age, remained straight, her voice steady, and her gaze could rival that of someone much younger. She had recently turned 78 and still loved her morning walks, tending to her garden, reading books, and enjoying the quiet. But one thing had started to bother her: constant itching under her breasts. At first, she thought it was due to the heat or the fabric of her bra. Then she suspected it might be a reaction to soap. But when the skin began to redden and she started feeling a burning sensation in the mornings, she realized it was more serious than she'd thought. Sylvia turned to her old friend Molly, a former nurse. Upon hearing the complaints, Molly just nodded. "You're not alone. The area under the breasts is one of the most neglected, and it's so easy for sweat to collect there, especially in summer. Moisture and warmth, it's the perfect environment for bacteria and fungi. It's not your fault. It's just age and the natural changes in the body." Sylvia felt a little embarrassed, but also relieved. She wasn't the only one dealing with this. Molly recommended using a mild, hypoallergenic soap, washing the area under the breasts every day, gently patting it dry with a separate towel, and, if needed, applying talcum powder or cornstarch to reduce moisture. "This isn't cosmetics," Molly added with a smile. "It's prevention." That evening, Sylvia filled a basin with warm water and gently washed the area, lifting her breasts the way a nurse would in a hospital ward. It felt a bit awkward and unfamiliar. Her body, despite the years, now demanded a new kind of attention. But, to her surprise, there was no discomfort. Quite the opposite. She felt a sense of relief, as if her body had thanked her for the care. Within a few days, the redness faded, the itching disappeared, and her overall comfort improved. She even noticed her mood had lifted. One morning, looking in the mirror, she thought with surprise, "I never realized how much difference such simple care could make." And it wasn't about beauty or age or fear of illness. It was about respect for herself, for her body, for the life she was still fully living. Sylvia now had a new morning ritual: a few minutes of quiet, gentle soap, a clean towel, and a caring touch to an area she used to ignore. For her, caring for the skin under her breasts became not a symbol of aging, but of a mature and loving relationship with herself. Frank had always been a reserved man. He never complained, even when getting up from his chair became difficult or when he needed longer breaks after his walks. At 76, he didn't see age as a reason to turn into a patient. But one thing kept bothering him: a feeling of discomfort in his groin. Sometimes it was an itch, sometimes a mild tingling. He blamed it on age, on his underwear, on the weather. Anything to avoid admitting that there was a real issue. During a routine checkup, a nurse gently asked, "Any itching or irritation in the groin area?" Frank grew uneasy, cleared his throat, and looked away. "Sometimes," he muttered. "But it's nothing." The nurse simply nodded with a knowing smile. "It's not nothing. In older adults, the skin in that area becomes thinner and more prone to irritation. Add in folds, sweat, tight underwear. It's all pretty normal. But if ignored, it can lead to serious problems. Back home, Frank stood in the bathroom for a long time, staring at himself in the mirror. His usual routine of washing his face and brushing his teeth had never included much attention to the lower half of his body. At least, not the kind of attention he gave, say, to his face. He felt a little self-conscious, but he decided to take action. He filled a basin with warm water, added a drop of mild soap, and began to gently clean his groin area. No rush, no pressure, just quiet respect for the body that had never let him down all these years. After a few days, the irritation was gone, and so was the odor that used to make him wrinkle his nose. He felt cleaner, freer. Even sitting in his chair had become more comfortable. What he had thought was a minor issue turned out to be a quiet strain he didn't realize he'd been carrying. The biggest revelation was that it was okay to talk about it. One day, while fishing with his friend Walter, Frank cautiously brought it up, expecting a joke in return. But Walter simply nodded, serious. "Same here. I thought I was the only one. Glad you said something." Now Frank understood. Caring for the groin area isn't shameful or a sign of weakness. It's a mature choice. It's about confidence, respect, and the care we owe ourselves every single day, even in the most private, hidden places. Because there is no part of the body unworthy of attention.